Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Prime Live, the Iftar edition here on INX Prime and on Ramazan TV, Sky Channel 791 in the UK. This evening I'm delighted to be joined by the former MEC of Finance in the Free State and now the current head of the Gadija Brown Foundation, Ms. Gadija Brown. Gadija, assalamu alaikum, welcome to our new studios in Northcliffe and all the way in the UK.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Mohammed, to you and your viewers. And it is so delightful to be here. It feels like home, such a beautiful studio. And I want to take this opportunity to thank INX Prime for having me. Shukran, jazakallah.
So over the last few years, we've spoken a lot about politics. Today I want to take it to a different direction. We are in the month of Ramadan, a month of giving, a month of charity. And we know Muslims and people all around the world are so giving at the moment. I want to speak to you about the different work and the most important work of the Gadija Brown Foundation.
Thank you. I'm so excited about it. It was established or founded in 2022. Largely, it started off, on my birthday, I celebrated a day of giving back to our community, specifically young girls. So every year over my birthday, I would feed a community of people, and that would be out of my pocket. Alhamdulillah, Allah was so great. The barakat and rizq that I had being in my former position allowed me to have sufficient funds, and of course a lot of my zakat would be to my community in the Free State. So I would do that, and that's how the foundation started. But also I needed, in my personal capacity, to talk about the plight of females and financial liberation or financial freedom. So I would support young girls, talk to them about what is good financing, budgeting, what is a good liability, what type of loans in a household, why do you spend on food only, where you should be spending on assets, and eventually accumulating those assets. And if anything has to happen in your marriage, you walk away with something, inshallah. So it was really just an empowerment program, just to talk to young girls about saving. Young girls, we found that there was a big scourge of young women that would come into the fold of Islam, marry foreigners, and foreigners would leave them at home with these babies, and they would come out of the fold of Islam because they would be desperate to have a marriage and somebody to look after them. So the financial liberation was really, twofold, explaining and teaching them about managing their funds, social economies, having to do little projects, communal projects, and to at least give them some independence, alhamdulillah. So it started off that way, and then largely you see partnerships. And part of those partnerships has been with many other NGOs like the Red Cross, Gift of the Givers, Al Imdad Foundation, Ashraful Aid, and it just grows from there. We have local business people in the Free State like TFS. We have some of our leaders in the Free State, not only of mosques, but churches and other community NGOs that would partner just because I was, alhamdulillah, in a position to be able to have such a large spread of individuals that we could reach so many more impoverished people in society. So I think as a Muslim, and you're coming to the idea of Ramadan and zakat, and as it is a time of giving, social activism is in our blood, it's in our thread of who we are as Muslims. And it's about not only just giving through your family and your community and broader, but also, you walk the talk. It's a way of life. It is who you are. So it doesn't mean that if you're in a political position and this was your role, it starts and ends there. So my role in giving, alhamdulillah, through my teachings in Islam began long before I came into politics, and it will continue long after politics. And that's the beauty of who we are. And as we can, at any given point in our lives, we try and help those who are in need.
You mentioned something very interesting about empowering young women. We do know in South Africa there's so many young women-headed households because of socioeconomic problems that we have in our country. And this is something you've been championing from your days as a MEC. Even now you're championing this cause. How important is it for other organizations to partner with the Gadija Brown Foundation just to get our young girls off the streets into a more positive mindset? It's not only about financial empowerment, it's about getting them to get to school empowering them because they're heading up households, they've got younger kids with them, getting them educated. How important and how can other organizations assist you?
I think there's so much of scope and a lot of social NPOs, NPCs, their mandates across the social grants is big and large. 70% of our society lives on social grants, and it has become a burden on our fiscus. But we have to find a mechanism not only to see that it shouldn't be just a consumer-rated item. It shouldn't be just an expense item. It should be an empowerment item. And I'm talking back in the finance space, where we see women giving back in the sense of contributing back into the economy. So other than just giving a food day drive or a period poverty drive or a drive where we're just supporting women at any given time just to help them with a solution for that specific moment in time, it does not become sustainable, not only to themselves, but also to the bigger picture in South Africa. So part of what I'd like to see with NGOs and the partnerships that we have is long-term programs and projects. So we try and profile women, and we establish what is their passion, what skills do they have, what education background do they have, and what skill could they provide back into our economy and our society. And then we work with, for example, those who have got access to funding with the UIF on skills redistribution and redevelopment of skills. Or we look at projects where we find young individuals come into entrepreneurship. We assist them with CIPC registrations, with CSD registrations. It's something simple that we can do on the BIS portal by ourselves at a very, very small price. And it helps them then feel like, I've got a project, I've got something in my name, and I can make this work. And I've seen exceptional results coming from a young girl who's got this idea, and you just need to link them up to the right networks. The other aspect is, given my previous portfolio, there's been a lot of opportunities for grant funding for women and business funding for women and women funding grants, financing, in general. And for us to be able to assist in providing quality applications, providing the quality type of documentation that have to go to these funders so that they could have a chance to support, their little projects. I think that is some of the work that we do as well. And then the corporate social investment initiatives that we find with the private sector. So my work largely has been with businesses and private sector. Of course, I'm in a cool-off period with government, but it doesn't stop providing back to the communities through the private sector and the support that we do there. So I want to thank the private sector for all their contributions and support that we've had so far. However, it does fulfill some of the tax initiatives, it does fulfill some of the obligations when it comes to corporate social investment, specifically on the preferential procurement and the supplier database, and the need for more women to come into, DFIs to come into this space as well.
You mentioned your previous role as MEC. How much has that helped you build the networks and also move on some of those skills and some of those things that you learned in that portfolio? How much has that helped you as you build the Gadija Brown Foundation?
I can say it was invaluable. It's amazing. It was incredible being in that role. And I would just make shukr to those who have had faith in me, that have elected me, the period that we were there. And I mean, it's more than enough to be able to still continue to give back at that level. I still feel like I'm operating at that level, but it doesn't stop any community member, any of our people to go and learn and read and understand all of our information, public knowledge, from a government perspective, from a policy perspective, a constitutional perspective, legal. It's all public knowledge. It is just for our communities to sit down, have no way to access this information, and to be able to tap into that relevant information. Should I say, unfortunately, there are still areas where if you know somebody, or if there has been somebody in the space that can provide you a little bit of more impetus or time to be able to have access to it, it does help. But I'd love to see a society where you can go onto a website, do an application, which the NYDA has done so well now, and Small Business Development has also done very well, and IDC and the DTIC. You go onto a website, an NEF2, so you go onto a website, you do your application, it goes through a process. And the only real challenge is skilling people enough to ensure that they've got a good quality business application that has to go through its process. And that's the work that we'd like to do, to try and ensure that everybody's got equal access to all the possibilities of this work that we can achieve. Not only in government, but also the private sector. We can also look at SOEs. There's a fundamental drive to ensure that preferential procurement and supply databases have transformed within the area that they operate in, transformed to ensure that they see more women empowered in businesses to procure from women and black businesses as a whole. And that allows for certain BE obligations and points that needs to be achieved through their businesses as well. So there's a lot of positive collaborations that we try and assist with to ensure that more young women, more young people have access to opportunities in South Africa.
My final question to you, we know it's the last few days of Ramadan. Any requests out there to the INX Prime viewers, also to the viewers on Ramadan TV in the UK? We know the foundation, we know the amount of good work that you do. Any requests, anything that's like really needed right now that the viewers of INX Prime and Ramadan TV could help with?
No, alhamdulillah, the challenge is in South Africa we still have individuals living in dire poverty. We have people who don't have food the next day. The cost of living is very high. I believe that if we could have as many households have at least a vegetable garden at home, or something that outside of just a social grant they can live on without having to be dependent on ensuring that that amount serves them throughout that month, which is impossible. I've seen that happening where you have a magogo outside doing a little food garden and she still lives off a social grant, but that is sufficient for her to be sustained through the month. There is so many gaps in that regard, and if we could get seeds out just to as many households and teach people how to just plant and grow food, that is one step in the right direction. So seeds, food parcels are not sustainable anymore. It lasts for that period, for that month, and then what next? So I do believe just teaching individuals how to ensure to sustain themselves, how to ensure that they have something that can sustain them throughout that month. That's the first dire need. Alhamdulillah, after that, I think the rest we as a team collaboratively through our social compact, business, government, industry and activists across the world, we've got to look at much larger scale, more contributive programs towards society. And then I'd like to say to young women out there during Ramadan, our Muslim young girls, social activism doesn't have to happen in politics. The change that you make through the world, what we want to see today, doesn't only have to happen in a political environment through a political party. NPOs and NGOs have got a voice, and your voice can be taken up to a parliamentary level in order to make the relevant change. So if you do have a plight, if you do feel that there is a need for something to change in our society, work through social activism, through organizations, create a movement that can drive that change that you want to see, inshallah. And I think that would be my gift to all the young women out there today. Be brave, do not be afraid, and work with teams that can help you make that change that you'd like to see.
Gadija, thank you so much for your time and all the best with your future endeavors, and we hope to see you soon at our studios.
Jazakallah, Mohammed, and it was so lovely to see you and be here once again.
Thanks so much. That was the former MEC for Finance in the Free State, Gadija Brown, just speaking about the Gadija Brown Foundation and how important empowerment of young women is. We're going to take a short break now, so stay tuned.